On today's video, I'm going to show you how to get the most out of your Wacky rig. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today on this video, I want to talk about the Wacky rig because the Wacky rig is my #1 bait during the spawn time period. So when fish are up either cruising around looking for places to spawn, or they're on the bed, or you know, however that looks on your lake, they're just shallow and around sparse and you know, random cover. And a Wacky rig is just one of the best type of baits or rigs to throw at fish. And usually with a Wacky rig, I like to keep it pretty simple. I generally stick with some type of stick bait. So you got a lot of different stick baits on the market. This is the Z-Man Zinkers, okay? Usually a stick bait is a straight tail worm. Not usually, a stick bait is always a straight tail worm that I'm aware of. And it's a little bit thicker body. It's got a lot of salt in it, and it tends to fall with a nice shimmy on the drop. And overall, I think that shimmy, that very natural sinking action, is really the attraction that fish have to a Wacky rig stick bait. So anyways, yeah, this is my setup, you know, some type of stick bait. Usually my favorite colors are like the Game Changer color that Z-Man has, which is also like Baby Bass and other brands. Green Pumpkin. This one right here is actually pretty good. This is called Goby Bryant. It actually looks really, really good. Green Pumpkin, Watermelon Red, those are kind of standard across the board for springtime Wacky rigging. But there's a bunch of different ways that you can rig a Wacky rig. You know, obviously the traditional way of rigging a Wacky rig bait is with, you know, some sort of finesse wide gap hook like this. This is the WRM 201 from Hayabusa. This is a medium wire finesse hook that this is my absolute favorite, especially if I'm fishing more sparse cover, not really throwing into the middle of cover, but fishing like maybe just casting the stumps and things like that. Dock posts, this is a really, really good one. And you can just go ahead and just hook it right through the middle like you're supposed to. Kind of, I like to go right to the side, you know, of that flat collar spot. Okay, so it's not quite in the middle, but it's right in the balance point of that bait. But it's just as simple as that. You just hook it like that, and you cast it out there, let it fall to the bottom, and lift it back up. It's one of the first techniques that I try to teach people to fish in bass fishing because of how simple it is, the fact that you're using spinning gear. So most people like to start with, like, you know, spin casting reels or with the button and everything, and then they go to spinning reels. And this is just an easy presentation to get used to, and it's super, super deadly, even from fishing from shore. So that's the simple way to do it. There's nothing wrong with just hooking it right through the middle with a nice wide gap finesse hook like that and casting it out there. But there's other ways to rig it. I want to show you two more hooks that I like to use for the Wacky rig. The next one is if I still want to use that same 201 style hook, but I'm fishing around more cover, maybe around bushes, grass, or, you know, just thicker cover in general, I'll switch over to the FG version, which is a fluorocarbon weed guard version. There's other hooks that have weed guards on the market as far as Wacky rig hooks, and a lot of them have wire weed guards. I'm not as big of a single strand wire weed guard. I've actually got one hook that I'm going to show you, one of the three that I do like to use. It does have a wire weed guard, but it's actually kind of a braided wire. But I'm not as big of a fan on the single strand wire weed guards because I honestly feel like it may poke the fish a little bit. As funny as that sounds, as ridiculous as it sounds, I don't think that fish have very many nerves in their mouth because of the sharp, spiny animals that they eat. But I do think that they can feel some things, and to have a single wire strand, you know, that is fairly sharp, you know, poke into their mouth, I don't think is very appealing. So I feel like the fiber or the fluorocarbon weed guard is just better overall. I tend to have a better hooking percentage with it. And I like to kind of spread the weed guard like that in a V, so it protects the hook on either side. So you can use this hook. It's a really good one, and all the products, by the way, are going to be in the description below as usual. You can use that one around cover. That one's like, oftentimes I'll have one with just the open style 201 and then the 201 FG on another rod. So I just kind of cycle between those if I'm on a Wacky rig bite. The third hook that I've really started to love to use, especially when I'm trying to get deeper, you know, if you are using forward-facing sonar and you know, targeting fish that are a little bit deeper out of sight or cover that's out of sight. This one right here, this is the new Core Tackle Wacky Shot, you know, weedless version. You can see we got that molded on weight there. Got a nice sharp hook on there. It does have a wire weed guard on it, but this is braided, so it's thicker. Like if I press on it, it's not gonna, you know, poke into me like a single, very thin single stainless steel wire. And it has this, you can see the corkscrew at the bottom there, and that is designed to really lock onto the bait. So that's one of the cool things about this. And even with the Laztec, you know, the Zinkers, most of you know that corkscrew type keepers don't really work very well with the Laztec, but since there's so much salt and it's a very porous type of worm, the Zinkers actually will do just fine with it. It's a little bit tricky to screw that in there. You know, it takes a little bit of finesse. But overall, you get it in there, it's locked in with that keeper, and you can go target fish that are just generally living deeper, and you can fish it in like brush piles and stuff. Like, to me, that's where this Wacky Shot really excels, is like deeper brush piles, okay? So, yeah, that pretty stout wire weed guard is a big player for being more efficient in that type of cover. And usually if I'm using this rig, I'm using like heavier, you know, like 12-pound test on my spinning gear. But anyways, those are the 3 different hook options that I like to use with the, you know, with a stick bait, you know, in a Wacky rig setup. But one of the things I really want to show you, or at least talk about, is how that hook point, you know, comes off of that bait. So the traditional way, as we talked about, is to hook the bait perpendicular like this. So the hook point is nice and exposed, okay? So if I'm holding the bait like this, the hook is actually in a perpendicular 90-degree, you know, orientation. Now, this is great for hooking percentage if you're fishing open water and very, very sparse cover, okay? That is going to get you your best hooking percentage, is that perpendicular hooking style. However, if you're fishing around cover and say you just got this exposed hook, all right, you just got a pack of these. If you simply hook it this way, sideways, so the hook, the shaft of the hook and the bait are parallel, this is going to allow you to fish it through more cover. It doesn't look like it because it's still an exposed hook point, but it actually comes through cover a lot better. So if you say you've got a tree limb that you're pulling over, okay, the hook point rolls with the bait and never really pulls into that. See, if it pulled like this, it's still gonna roll over. If it was the other way, perpendicular, okay, when you pull it over, that hook point just goes right into that cover. So I'm not saying that it's completely weedless, because it obviously is not. It is still an exposed hook point, but it is way easier to feather it over, you know, cover like limbs or grass with the hook parallel with the bait like that. One thing that people really like to do, including myself, if I'm on a Wacky rig bite, even if I'm using a Laztec like the Zinkers, which is very durable, I'm still going to be using a tool like this to put an O-ring onto the bait. So I'll do this instead of just hooking directly into the bait. Put the O-ring on there, okay? And again, I'll put all this stuff in the description below. And then you hook like So underneath that. So if you put one of those you know, those O-rings on your stick bait like this, you essentially are going to be hooking it in that parallel orientation, okay? So it is going to be a little bit more weedless, but you may actually experience missing some fish that you normally wouldn't experience with a perpendicular hooking method. All right, so I'm going to show you how to do that while still having that that O-ring on there, which the O-ring is excellent. It's like, it's a really, really good hack to make sure that you're not losing a bunch of baits. Because once you put that on there, I mean, that O-ring is way stronger than even a Lastech, and you can cast it, you can skip it, and it's just not going to come off as easy. But if you have one of those on, you pretty much have to have, you know, have your hook in that kind of like parallel hooking orientation. But if you take it, that same worm with one already on it, you take your tool, put it over, and you kind of like crisscross them, you know, crisscross those O-rings. That way you can actually take the hook that you're using, and you can hook it like that. I'll try to get it so you can see it. So you put the hook in the cross there, and that way you can have a better hooking percentage with that perpendicular hooking orientation and still have those O-rings on there, which I think is a really big deal. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is the difference isn't that huge between, you know, parallel and perpendicular as far as hooking percentage. It's pretty big when it comes to like being able to feather it through cover. But if you are missing fish with the parallel, you know, just doing the single, you know, rubber O-ring, try doing it perpendicular like this with two O-rings, and I bet your hooking percentage is going to go through the roof. There's just sometimes that for some reason, I feel like the bait pulls out of their mouth before they get hooked, and so I have to do this little hack to get them to do it. But anyways, guys, that is, you know, it's just some of the details on my Wacky rigging. Again, keep it simple. The Wacky rig is all about simplicity. All right, so like I'm just kind of diving deep into the weeds of you know, how I fine tune my presentation, but in general, just get out there with a pack of stick baits, a nice finesse hook, and go catch some fish. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Again, the links are in the description below for all the products we talked about today. Other than that, drop a comment with any questions or comments that you have, and I'm going to see you out in the water. Make sure you trust the process.